Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar on languages for specific purposes in basic curricula. My name is Mary Reisner. I'm Associate Director at the Center for Latin American Studies at the University of Florida, and I'm founder of Noble and this little webinar series that we've been trying to do. This is the second year, and I want to welcome our guests today, Annie Abbott from University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, and Holly Niebert.
Nibert.
It is Nibert. Gosh, I'm sorry. Okay. I guess my phonetic Spanish is really messing me up with all my pronunciation. So, Holly Nibert from Ohio State University. And I will mention, I think Annie was our first webinar speaker last year, and we're happy to have her back. And glad to have Holly here with us today as they talk about their textbook materials. So I wanted to see, even though people typed it in yet, just to kind of see where everyone else is from, because I'm from Florida. Annie's in obviously Illinois. We got Ohio. So where are you from? You can type in the chat box. Woohoo! Gainesville, the booming metropolis of Gainesville, Florida. We got some good.
Woohoo! Portugal.
Okay, great. And Sadie, did I miss? Oh, she's typing. Okay. San Francisco. Oh, wow. Okay, good spread across, time zones too. I do want to put a plug in with Brigitte, Rita, and Carolina in case any of you can recruit some other grad students. Brigitte works as a grad assistant with me at UF, but I connected with Rita and Carolina. I can't even remember how. We won't go into the details, but anyways, we've connected through social media, and they are now collaborating with Noble, and we're trying to do a lot of things to bring in more grad students to kind of get the field into graduate departments. So anybody with grad students working in LSP, we'd love to have them join the Noble collaborations. So
can I just say something too about Carolina? Carolina has a wonderful blog and she's on Twitter. Carolina, can you write those links into the chat box so other people can see your work and maybe follow you on Twitter?
Good idea. And she'll be presenting, you're going to see the sign, because Carolina and Rita both will be presenting in the next couple months. And keep in mind, and we can post these again at the end for anybody else that wants to add their stuff. Yeah, Carolina is great with the social, that social media and the networking, it works. So it's really great. So, so quick little commercial for the Noble website to check it out. A lot of resources, developing a program for K through 12. We have tabs for programs at universities, majors, minors, certificates in LSP, language resources by a variety of languages, advocacy resources, etc. All the webinar schedules are there. And then my next slide is I thought I did that little bubble, but so Rita will be our next topic. And I'm really excited to have someone talk about these because it's usually Spanish, so it's good. And then presenters for French, so that gives us some good diversity. And then we have MOOCs, which is also a hot topic. Will be coming, from Carolina in Belgium. And to close the series this year, long UNC to talk about leadership in the language classroom, which is also another hot topic right now. So our format, we kind of did our brief introductions. Our guests will speak, and I'm going to turn the camera off to get my face out of here. And while they're speaking, You can be typing comments and questions in the chat. Annie's really good at multitasking, so she is talking and checking at the same time. So she might touch on it while she's moving along, and we can go into more depth towards the end. So when we have Q&A. So I believe, and that's it. Contact if you want to learn more about Noble, see the website, there's the link. Now I'm going to go ahead and put your first slide up, okay? The first was vocabulary 1.
Yes.
Okay. And then I'm going to turn this off. So, and thanks again, guys, for doing this. So here you go.
Thank you.
Well, I guess I'll just go ahead and get started. I want to tell you all that Holly and I are good friends. We go back to grad school. So if we start to giggle, that's because we're friends and we giggle a lot together. Holly and I are going to talk about languages, Spanish for the professions in the basic language curricula. And if you are interested, there is a slide show that I have prepared and put up on my slide share. Mary has the link, so I know that she can share that with us at a certain point. If you want to refer back to some of the things that I'm saying. But I didn't want to share that whole PowerPoint right now. I wanted to just concentrate on the activities. But I do want to say a few things about why we're doing this, where we're coming from. And first is students. We have to always put our students front and center of what we're doing and what we're thinking. And we really do need to understand that even when we are teaching freshmen who are taking Spanish 101 or Portuguese 101 or French 101 as their freshmen, they are sitting in our classes and they are thinking about, what am I going to do after college? And why are they thinking about that? In part, they're thinking about that because the cost of college is so much. We know now at the University of Illinois, not just tuition, but the cost of going to college has reached $100,000 for 4 years. That's a lot of money, and their parents and the students themselves are thinking about, what am I going to do afterward to recuperate these costs? And it's not so easy because we are doing much better than we were in 2008, 2009, but it is still a tough job market for our graduates. Not as tough as some people might think. Within the liberal arts, studies show us, the most recent survey showed us that foreign language majors earn the most after graduation of the people who graduate in the liberal arts. But that doesn't mean it's not still tough to get a good job. And a lot of language majors, frankly, are sort of not sure how to go about even getting a good job upon graduation. So they're sitting in our classes and we're teaching them Spanish, but also on their minds is, what am I going to do after college? So they're concerned about their careers, but they're also very ambitious about their careers. They have high expectations for themselves and for what they want to do with their careers. We know that this generation wants to change the world. They want to have jobs that matter. They want to, it's not just about money. It is about wanting to find meaning in their careers. So they're concerned, but they also have high expectations. And departments know this, and I think probably all of you, at least in the United States that are listening, know that we having a crisis of enrollment in language programs. And so departments know that there's an issue, and their response has traditionally been to simply and that's too vague to be helpful to students. Another tactic that some departments do is to list very, very specific jobs that language majors can go into. And they'll say things that are very attractive, like you can go into business, you can go into medicine, you can go into, your language will help you with all of these things. Well, your language is a plus on top of studying something about marketing. We know that employers look to fill positions. So if they have a marketing position, they want to look for someone about marketing, and speaking French or speaking Arabic is a plus on top of that. We're sending our students some mixed messages. yes, we want to recruit them. Yes, we know that foreign languages are important for careers afterward, but departments sometimes don't have a real clear and helpful message to our students about careers afterward. Part of the problem in really addressing students' career concerns and the realities of languages being helpful in their careers is that many language educators feel themselves unable to teach about careers that they don't have experience in. So what is it that what career, what profession can we really, from our own experience, talk to our students about? Usually it's teaching. And so some people really are fearful about trying to teach business in the classroom or trying to teach about the health professions in the classroom because that's not what they were trained in. That's not what they have professional experience doing. So our message today in this webinar is, I know that we're speaking to the choir here because all of you already have an interest in LSP, but when we're talking about the basic language program, we're usually talking about TAs who are doing the teaching or adjuncts who are doing the teaching. We might not be doing all of the teaching. We might have some confidence and some interest in this, but we are probably going to be working with people who will be implementing the curriculum who might not feel as much confidence, as much interest as we do. So what is the main message? You do not have to be a doctor. You do not have practiced law. You do not have to have been in the business world to be able to, at the basic language level, talk about these things, teach these things. And why is that? Because we're not teaching students to be international marketing experts. We're not teaching them to triage patients in Spanish, an emergency room. We are at the basic language level talking about professional behaviors, professional disposition, professional vocabulary, things that are basic level, but that are actually very helpful and can transfer across multiple professions. So I know that I'm talking. Go ahead.
Just
Holly.
jump in and say that another objective of our activities is for them to explore who they are. We present what different types of professions need in terms of personal skills and qualities, and so we kind of lay those out and challenge them to reflect on themselves to see whether or not they think that that's a profession that interests them and whether the skills for that or whether they would be interested in developing them. So
showing you some activities that are in this textbook we published with Pearson called Dia Dia. This really isn't a presentation about the textbook. It's a presentation about how we can, as language educators, we can take the kinds of activities that we use every single day to help our students with their second language acquisition, and we don't change that. We still teach the same ways that we know are the best ways to teach in a language classroom. We simply change what we're talking about or what we have the students talk about. So the content is about the professions, but the activity types that we're going to show you are very similar to what you have seen in any textbooks. So I just want to make sure that it's very clear that we're not just talking about our textbook. We're talking about what anyone can do with any textbook that they're using. Take an activity type that's in your next day's lesson, and simply keep that activity, but maybe change one of the items, or even all of the items if you want to, and make the content be about professional behavior, dispositions, or contexts. Mm-hmm. So our very first example here is a listening comprehension activity. So I know all of you do listening comprehension activities with your students at the basic language level. And I want to be clear that this is not an activity for 101 for first semester. This was designed for fourth semester, but we can talk about how we can adapt that. So, if you can see here that the script, let's just do number one. I'll read it. It says, muy bien, veo que su fecha de nacimiento es el 1 de enero de 1990. So that's quite a bit that students have to listen to. So the question asks them to actually manipulate the information to come up with the answer. So it's not just, did you understand? You have to do something with the information that you're getting. And why is that important? Because that's what happens in professional context. That's what happens in the real world. It's not just about taking dictation. It's about using the information for professional communication. The other thing that I'd like to really emphasize here is that it's about numbers. And I have found, because of the work that I've been doing for over 10 years with community service learning, putting students into contexts here in town, I know that our students struggle with numbers. And I'm talking about students who have studied abroad a semester, even a year. And you put them on the telephone and they have to write down the telephone number. They have taking a message, they have to write down the telephone number of the person. They have to write down the date or the address or the zip code. They struggle. They really struggle with understanding numbers. My best students still struggle with understanding 60, 70. They get those two things confused. 500 still confuses people. Years, 2000, that's easier for them, but anything that's the previous century, it's a real mouthful for them to say and to understand as well. So I want to point out that this practice with numbers it might seem very elementary, too elementary to be done at the fourth or the third semester, but it's actually a professional skill that we need to help our students with throughout the basic language curriculum, because it is so important when they actually go out into work situations. I have had one of my community partners several years ago said, "Anne, this is a real problem for me. Your students aren't, I love your students, but they aren't able to take down the correct phone numbers when they take down messages, and this is causing a problem for our organization." So again, just wanted to make sure that we see that this is a typical listening comprehension activity, less typical in the sense that students actually have to do something with the information, but it presents numbers within a professional context, a specific professional context. And again, just this idea of numbers, they need to practice them over and over and over again. Holly, is there anything that you want to say about this activity?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Thanks so.
Mary, do you want to go ahead to our next vocabulary activity? One of the things that I didn't say about that previous activity was there are ways that we could have made it more comprehensible, easier for a first semester course. You reduce the amount of language, you reduce the cognitive load that the students have to, that is required of the students. So that's another thing to play around with, the level. For me, basic language program goes from first semester to fourth semester. It might be different at your institutions, but again, just changing the amount of language, changing the level of the vocabulary and the cognitive load, we can adapt all of these that I'm showing you here.
Yeah.
So this is
Can I jump in now? I was going to say that when you say that they have to do something with the language, the issue is that in typical listening comprehension activities, you circle a choice that's already there, right? So if you're already processing and listening, you don't have to also produce, right? So we're targeting more the receptive skills. So one way to make that easier would be to make a multiple choice 3 to 4 options for each of those items, because the answers aren't provided there. They're in the teacher note for the instructor. So that's just one idea of a practical way to make that easier, would be to make a selection of responses available for students to choose from then, rather than asking them to do the calculation without any support. So the fact that there isn't more linguistic support there is what makes it a little bit more difficult. But basically, I'm fascinated by how any activity could be made more or less difficult by how we tweak things, right, to make to change cognitive load or change which skills required, etc. So if you're interested in that, we could talk more about that. But yeah.
Thanks, Holly. Okay, so we're going to take a look at an activity that I think a lot of you will probably find familiar. That is, you get students into groups and they have to share their opinion, they have to defend their opinion, they have to come to an agreement among the group, and then they have to make some decisions about that. But I hope if you'll just take a moment, if you understand Spanish, if you could just read through these three scenarios about un niño de 10 años tiene problemas de comportamiento en la escuela y en la casa, no quiere hacer sus deberes, se distrae fácilmente y se enfada mucho. El otro día pegó a otro niño de su clase. Entre las opciones a continuación.
Don't understand Spanish to the level to be able to interpret this in writing or to be able to read this. So if you could let us know, maybe we could do a little bit of translating to so that you're not losing the meaning there. So
Sure. Who is behavioral problems at school and at home. The other day he hit someone, a classmate at school, and so here are three treatment options, and the student needs to choose. And then taking medicine and coming back in 3 months. The second one is a visit with a therapist who will do something like a talking cure with a child and ask lots of questions about his family, his friends, and more than that. And then the treatment would be to once a week meet with a social worker at school, and once a month go back to the therapist. And then if the child in the meantime is aggressive again, he'll have to go home for 2 days and then be expelled for 2 days. And then the third option is the grandmother. The grandmother could come, both of the parents work, and so the grandmother could come live with the family. And the grandmother is elderly and she has some chronic health problems that right now aren't too serious. The house is small, so the grandmother and the child would have to stay in the same room. But the idea would be for her to be there when he gets home from school, to be a positive influence in his life. And so the task then is for each student to choose which treatment they think is best, and then they get into a group and they have to explain their choice, defend their choice, and try to convince the others that, okay, we have to come up with one. This is the one that I think that we should come up with together. Mm-hmm. I hope that was a good summary that didn't take too long for you. So there are some things that I'd like to say about this activity, but I really, I'll keep my eye on the chat box to see what anyone else might have to say about this activity. So obviously here, again, we're still in the health professions. For me, it's really important in this activity that we show students that the health professions are more than just clinical doctors or medical doctors and nurses, that we talk about mental health professionals and that we talk about sort of these culturally responsive options like la abuela, so that medicine isn't our only option when we're talking about the health professions and languages and cultures. Another thing that I think that is important here is situation of health professionals who have to deal with areas of gray. Each one of these solutions has some positives and has some negatives. And so there's no one clear choice that doesn't involve some complexity. And so when we think about talking to our students about or using professional content in our courses, even though the language level We want to control and make sure that the language is enough that our students can handle it. It doesn't mean that we can't present them with pretty complex issues that then they use a more simplified language to talk about. So one of the things that we know about the professional world of the times that we live in is that we have to deal with complexity. We have to deal with issues that have areas a shade of gray. And I think that this is something that I wanted to point out here. Holly, is there anything else that you wanted to say about that?
So another layer here is the issue of ethics and moral dilemmas, and asking students to think these through, because they're going to confront those all the time in the workplace, no matter what profession they go into. So it kind of presents this idea of ethics and how to think about it and talk about it, and ultimately have to make decisions. But another thing I want to say has to do with the implementation. So if an instructor found this to be too complicated or too complex, the first step one, or paso uno, could be assigned for homework, and it's more of an individual step anyway. So if an instructor doesn't want to take class time to have students process this text through reading, it can be done at home, and students can have a chance to look up words and then come prepared with the choice that they most want to defend, 1, 2, or 3. So then the paso dos, or the step 2, you can see that there's that group icon with three symbols, is when the debating actually takes place in class. So they need to only choose one. That's the task. They have to make one decision, and that's not easy. So hopefully that stimulates some level of conversation among them. And then they need to make a conclusion. And these conclusions are pretty simple, right? They're either one-word expressions or phrases that sum up what they think. So it kind of gives them a reflection back and a way to summarize easily what their ethical solution was, especially if they don't have the language to convey that as a complex thought. So
I think another point is when you do this particular one with students, it's very interesting to see the cultural differences. And I don't know about your institutions, you might have some heritage speakers in your classes, and who chooses number 3 is very interesting, and who just simply rolls their eyes at number 3. And so that's a good chance for us to help our students reflect on their cultural perspectives as well.
And did you see Carolina's comment in the box?
Oh, there you go. Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
yeah. And so Carolina, even if they don't choose it, it's an opportunity for the educator, the language educator, to make that more salient.
Yeah, because otherwise, typical Americans who are monolingual and monocultural for the most part would not even know what to think about number 3, perhaps. And so bringing in that cultural perspective is part of the reasoning behind the activity.
Right. And what I always tell my students is, okay, right now, yes, we're talking about the health professions, and I want you to see, this option of la abuela, but this is the kind of thinking that you have to do in any profession. So it's not going to be this exact situation that you have to resolve, but this is the kind of complex thinking, and thinking that takes into account other cultural perspectives as well.
Mm-hmm.
So Anna and Carolina, is it Ana Rita? Oh, Anna? Anyway, I'll call you Ana Rita. I'm glad to see that you...
Rita. I think Mary called her Rita. Rita.
Muy bien. Okay. So Holly, if there's nothing else that you want to say about this activity, let's go on to the grammar activity, if possible, Mary.
Okay, you want me to go ahead, Ian?
Go, Holly.
Okay. So I just want to give a little more context. So we have 6 chapters in our book. I know this isn't about our book, but I think it helps to put these activities in context. Each chapter deals with a major type of profession that is feasible for someone to do using their Spanish if they stayed in the US, because we're always thinking about going abroad, but we want to show students that there's a place for their Spanish in the US, even if they decide to stay and work in the US, which is probably what the majority of our students will end up doing. But so each chapter has the topic in terms, so the business world, how it affects our personal lives, and then the second part is our professional lives. And so basically this is an activity that addresses workplace dynamics, and the fact that we all work with people, and that, or usually, right, if you're dealing with Spanish because you care about communication, and you may be going into a profession that has communication as a central skill. And so this activity has to deal with how do we define what a positive work environment is. And so for those of you who don't necessarily can't process the Spanish, I will just kind of translate it. So the title is A Positive Work Environment. And so the leadership, or the, how do you translate it? Yeah, the managers of an organization are responsible for establishing the values that determine the culture and the work environment. What values and actions help to create a positive work environment? And this is important for all of us. So in the first step, students work alone, and they must complete each sentence with a se pasivo construction. Those probably exist in all Romance languages, right? And so this is the kind of the working grammar part. It's I would call it a structured output activity. It's very simple. Basically, it's focused just on creating the target structure in context, where the items 1 through 8 are interrelated thematically, and it's about a topic, right? One topic. And then they need to reflect. So it's not just, they have to think not just about the form, which is the conjugation of the verb in parentheses, but also about the meaning. So do they agree with the statement that was made by conjugating the verb in that way? So they check yes or no. And if they don't agree, they need to change it in order to make it a statement that they agree with. So this is a structured output, simple activity that also brings focus into meaning. And I'm using the vocabulary of Lee and Van Patten in Making Communicative Language Teaching Happen, which is the book I use when I train my instructors as language program director. And then in the second class, so they work with a partner, and they're asked to, well, actually, let me go over just a few of these. Sorry about the Spanish. So the model is the opinions of others, which is the subject that appears after the verb, right, are appreciated. So people's opinions are appreciated. You agree, yes or no? And obviously for this example, we're saying that we agree, right? That's a good thing. So number 1 is the work se reparte. Repartir is to divide up. The work is divided up in an equal manner or fair manner. The second one is the good work of only the favorites is recognized. And so hopefully students would see this as something that would not contribute to a positive work environment and might check no, and then they could change it to se reconoce el buen trabajo de todos, for example, right? Et cetera, et cetera. So I hope that that gives you a better idea, but if not, we can review some of the other items. I suppose number 4 would be good to go over just as another one that hopefully they would disagree with. So cooperation is looked down upon or not appreciated or discouraged, right? So hopefully they would say no, and then they could change the verb to se aprecia, which is one of the other target vocab words for the chapter. So then in Paso Dos, they're going to get together and compare their answers, say which ones they agree with, which ones they need to change and in what way, and then prepare a brief summary or conclusion for the class. And so this is an activity that on the surface is about grammar and practicing a particular grammar point, which is the passive say constructions. But obviously the content goes specifically to how we would define a positive work environment, what are our opinions and values about that. And so it actually teaches also, hopefully instills values about what kind of work environment they would want to participate in and create if they're ever in a leadership position. So it's also about leadership. I'm also interested in leadership, so I'm looking forward to Sherry's talk coming up about leadership in the classroom. So Again, I guess the question would be, or the question that Anne and I have asked is this an activity type that you recognize? Perhaps items 1 through 8 in step 1 you do for sure. Perhaps the yes/no box, that's basically a strategy to bring in meaning to the activity. So that may be less familiar if you, I think it's becoming more and more so, but the point is that this is a familiar activity type that has content that brings a focus in on the professions, which is the point. So, you want to add anything, Anne?
Yeah, I would also just add that it's another example of how, yes, this is an activity that is about the business world, that is about, it's in the business chapter, right, Holly? And but I think that any language educator would feel comfortable teaching about these kinds of values, as Holly has called them, about creating a positive work environment. Just by the very nature of working in a department, in a language department, you know something about how to create or not create a positive work environment. And so again, this idea of, even we have to recognize that a lot of people feel very fearful about teaching about the professions because they haven't been trained in those particular professions. But I think this is an about in our classes.
Thanks for your feedback, Marion and Sherry. We're glad that you like the check boxes. It can be a little bit tedious to see check boxes, but I almost find a hard time not asking students to reflect on these things now, right? Give them a place and an opinion, right, in the learning process. But
so what we'll do now is move on to culture. So Mary, if you could show culture 1. So what we've tried to do is to approach culture as a process, as a verb, rather than just facts or factoids. And so this is, instead of calling this section a culture section, we call it a cultural competence section. And so the first step in each of the cultural competence sections is for students to reflect on their own cultural perspectives, because I find that nowadays more people are talking about that and doing that, but still really we are still presenting, for the most part, culture as something that other people have, and not that we have to. Okay. And so the first step is to understand your own culture, and they interview each other. Again, a very familiar activity type that we all do with our students. And this is, the questions are really about, how do you feel about people who speak English with a foreign accent? Or how do you, how about when you go to the movies and you have to listen to British accents or Australian accents? Do you have trouble with that? And how do you feel about talking to people whose English isn't perfect or is at different levels? So that very first step of getting students to think about the topic, but from within their own cultural perspective. And then we give them a cultural strategy that has to do with the tourism sector, which is something that people who study languages can think about a job in the tourism sector. And so here the cultural strategy is really, how to talk to people who are not native speakers of your language, whatever that language might be, Spanish or English. And sometimes how you find yourself in a situation where you have to speak to someone where you're both speaking a second language and not your first language. And so some tactics that you can use to slow down, to use visual elements, to write down your words so that it can read them and look them up, use gestures, and other tactics that we give them here. So again, approaching culture not as something to learn about others, but as a process that we go through, a transcultural, that's what transcultural means, going among, in between cultures. So first you got to start with your own, and then there are some strategies that we can use when we are in these transcultural contexts. Mary, could you move to the next culture? Mary, thank you. Holly, where'd you go? While we're waiting for this to show up on the screen, I guess I'd ask anyone if you have any comments about this idea of culture as a process to write something in the chat box. It's come up now, but still I welcome anything that anyone wants to write in the chat box. And so here we come to our last step in the culture as a process, the cultural competence. And that is, now what are you going to do? We thought about it from your own perspective. We've given you a few tips. Now let's put it into place. And so here, again, the professional information, we're staying within the tourism sector, and the examples that we give that students have to get together and try to work is, number one, you work in a hotel and one of the clients doesn't speak Spanish at all. He touches his belly with his hand, and then he moves his hand up to his mouth. What do you, and he says something that you don't understand. How do you react? How do you respond to a situation like that with someone who's using gestures from belly to mouth, belly to mouth? Number two, you work in a museum and a group of girls ask you how to get to their hotel. You tell them the route, but you tell them too that that route goes by an area that's kind of unsafe, and you suggest that they go in a taxi. When they leave the museum, you notice that they are walking instead of taking a taxi. What do you do? And then number three, you work in a restaurant and you think that one of the clients is trying to tell you that he has allergies or she has allergies, but you're not sure, and you're not sure what they have allergies to. What would you do? How would you handle that? So again, this idea of culture, not about facts that we learn, or not only about facts that we learn about other people in other places, but culture as something that we encounter, culture as something that we process, culture as steps that we take and actions that we take in these transcultural contexts, in professional contexts. And so again, I think we're back to the idea of, you do not have to have worked in a hotel to be able, I think, for number one, to have some idea about how to handle someone who's trying to use gestures to communicate with you. You don't have to have been a professional in the tourism sector to be able to help students through these activities and to think about culture and language in a professional setting. Holly? Holly, your audio is off. I think you need to go back up to the top and you need to click on that microphone. Carolina, I see.
Back in.
Yeah, go ahead, Holly.
Some technical difficulties, sorry. So my thought on this was really about social competence, right? Because a lot of these activities require people to have social intelligence and social competence. But then when you add the layer of another culture and another language, then it becomes intercultural competence. So it's hard to have intercultural competence if you don't have social competence to begin with. So again, kind of touch on this topic of interacting with others in general, and being competent to interact with people. The other thing that I wanted to add was that these sections are a reflection of an attempt to answer the, is it 2007 MLA report about having our profession do better in teaching intercultural competence, and bringing that into the classroom. And Ann and I have spent hours on the phone talking about this, and this issue in our own departments, discussions about, well, what are the common pieces of information about culture that all faculty would agree in a department that students need to know to be a Spanish major or minor, or a French major or minor. You know, how do you quantify and make a list of those issues so that if we wanted to test or assess students upon graduation, how prepared they are, we could actually put these and assess them somehow in a concrete way. And it's really not easy. I was at Western Michigan for 15 years before starting here at Ohio State in the fall, and we had that debate for a number of years. And I know Anne has that debate going on at Illinois in her department right now. This really is an interesting issue because it means that we're thinking about these things. I really don't think that anyone has an answer yet, but it obviously is an issue that deserves a lot of attention. So this was just one example of how to approach this. So I do think students need to know some facts, right? But they need to move beyond that and be able to interact in culturally appropriate ways in the cultures of their target language. So
Exactly.
I don't know if you want to add to that, Ed. Yeah.
No, I would just say that it's 3:47, and we want to make sure that we have this time to do question and answer. Here, not just questions, but concerns, or what are you doing to integrate professions into the basic language curricula? And we'd love to hear from any and all of you. Rita, I totally agree that, and especially in the United States, in some places in the United States, people can feel like, okay, let's back up just a second. I think it's so important to talk about this in basic language programs because the students are there usually because they're required to be there, or often they're required to be there. And so this is the time when and four-year careers. And how about taking some more classes afterward? Or how about double majoring or minoring in Spanish too? Because they often get the idea that this foreign language is not useful. Oh, it's only useful if you go abroad. And like Rita says, even in your own country, you can often encounter people from other cultures, other languages, and in general, I think, especially talking about transcultural competence, that can help our students with minority populations within the U.S. too, not just people who speak a different language than us. So thank you for that, Rita.
Do we want to open up the mic? Anne Mary suggests maybe opening the mic. I don't know. Are we planning on ending in about? Or
If people tell me if they want, we'll give them the mic. I'm not going to turn it on for everyone. There can be feedback and noise, but yeah, if anybody wants to say something, we'll just give them the mic. Because yeah, Rita just typed a really long message, or someone did.
So
you can raise your hand and we give you speaker rights.
Sandy, goodbye, and thanks for, I hope we can continue a conversation. I would also say to Carolina, in literature, the literature sections in the book don't necessarily have a professional. We have two sections in each chapter. One section is a personal section, and the other section is a professional section. And so, of course, you could do literature and from an angle about the professions, but we don't really do that in our book. The literature sections are more traditional in that way. And also, I have to say, in part, it's because it wasn't easy to even get this professional part in the textbook. The publishers aren't comfortable totally with this, and is there a market? Is there not a market for this? And so this is not a 100% textbook about the professions. It's about half. Holly, is there anything you wanted to say about that?
Well, I wanted to add in that actually, Anne, I think you did because Anne's PhD is in literature and mine's in linguistics. I said, Anne, you get to do all the literature sections. And each chapter does have a literary reading. And I think Anne did a great job of choosing pieces. Can you guys still hear me? Can you hear me, Anne? Okay. Of choosing pieces that reflect professions. So in the one chapter, you have a guy who's a little bit picaro in his ethics in terms of surviving and Another one, you have a photographer whose job it is to photograph corpses who are the victims of political violence in a Central American country. And so there are, the literary readings do address professions. Of course, these were choices made by the authors, and Anne simply chose those pieces. But there is kind of a theme of a professional life through the literary pieces. So Carolyn's asking, do you also give translations of the fragments? So this is meant to be a fourth semester book or a second year, more intermediate. So no, we do not give the translations, but we do gloss in the margin any words that we think will be difficult. That's an interesting question too, because I'm trying to remember the software company that deals with readings and you gloss over and there's complete sentences translated. I do think that Pearson is working on their MyLabs product to be able to do that. So that's a great question to think about. Students may be able to do that, even though Anne and I didn't include that. Pearson may actually make their product able to do that, if not now, perhaps in the future. So thank you for the question. I don't have more of an answer for that than that at this point. So Anne is typing in some links. I can't find the link to the book. Sorry, do you have it post? So basically, if you go to pearsonhighered.com, one complete line, you can do a higher ed product search, and if you put in our names, the book will pop up, and you'll see all kinds of options.
And the title?
Yeah, so if you put up, and or the title, but if you put in our names, it should pop up as well. I should probably do a test right now to see if that's true, but I'm pretty sure it is.
And if anyone else has the resources that they want to share, they please type your link in also.
So Mary, is this conversation, the chat conversation, part of the recording?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll show up, and I also email it. I can, I email it to me, so if you want, I can forward you the chat box. It gets archived as well. I can forward it to you.
I guess.
Did anybody have more questions or comments? I mean, we can go over a few minutes if people have things. Don't be shy.
Carolina is typing. Again, just emphasizing that this is, we are not teaching them to triage, to do surgery in Spanish. We're talking about professional behaviors. We're talking about professional, I think Sherry here mentions this is a kind of leadership. It is a kind of reflective practitioner thinking about how you interact with others and that how that impacts them. So Carolina asks about testing.
Yeah, if you look at our the workbook, Pearson calls it a SAM, or a Student Activities Manual. It actually was written by another author who we brought on because we were just so busy we couldn't finish all of the materials. So he actually has a great approach. He tests these concepts and knowledge of the cultural strategies by giving little scenarios and asking students how they would respond to them based on what they learned from these book sections. So, of course, the grading would be challenging, so the instructor would need to decide ahead of time what main ideas he or she is looking for, and what kind of points to give to them. So but it's completely feasible, and the SAM shows some great examples for how to do that are low stakes examples, but to make them high stakes for a test, of course, you'd have to figure out what your grading criteria are and how many points to allocate to things. But that's something we'll have to do to help users see how to do that. So,
well, and Carolina, I think that you can see that for instructors who want to stick with the traditional grammar-based, vocabulary-based kind of testing, they can do that because the activity types are about, we showed vocabulary, we showed grammar, activities. So those things are being presented to the students, and students could be tested on them. It's just the content, the questions that you would ask would have professional content to them. But for anyone who really wants to do a traditional kind of testing program, it's still there.
So Carolina asks, how can we incorporate these skills portfolios? And I'm not completely clear on the question. Anne, do you have an interpretation and an answer? Hopefully there would be consensus among all teachers to not just stay with
Well, first I agree with Carolina that we hope that we can get away with the traditional, but I'm telling you, Carolina, it is, bringing change is difficult, and getting all the stakeholders to be on board, and the fears that, I have come to understand, I think, better that a lot of people just aren't as informed as we think they might be about testing and different ways of approaching language education. But the fear that people are going to have to spend more time, the fear that people are going to maybe not look professional themselves, that they might make mistakes. Oh, there's a lot of leadership that Sherry was talking about, and that Holly's interested in too. There's a lot of leadership in how we can, what we have to do to try to make our colleagues get on board with these changes in content, but also in how we test. Holly, you want to jump in?
Another, this may be obvious, but so as language program director, I think about an ethical issue. And so if I'm leading and coordinating a level that has numerous sections, like for example, our master space, Ohio State, and it was extremely centralized, and so I'm trying to decentralize it. And one way I'm doing that is to say, okay, our main exams, our midterm and our final exams will be shared and common, and so we need to determine these are the sections of a textbook or the content that are game for shared exams, so be sure to cover these things. But then I'm giving the individual instructors and asking to give at least 2 on their own. Not only encourage them to develop professional skills in test writing to see what works and what doesn't and learn from their mistakes, but it gives them a chance to put on their own quizzes what they think is important. So say they're a little more aggressive and they're in a more traditional program. That's their chance to include these types of concepts in quizzes to communicate to students that this is important and I really want you to understand this and learn practically. So that's kind of one idea out of differences, whether it's faculty in a department or among instructors in a particular course level.
But I do love the idea of a portfolio, and there is so much that we could be doing with assessment and portfolios that we're not doing in most programs and at the base level language. So I totally agree that is a great idea. Just it's not happening in my department. I don't think it's happening in Holly's either.
Yeah, I have yet to know here, but I know at West, at Western Michigan, there was, I think that actually we were pretty far ahead as the department in knowing that we thought cultural concepts were important and that to assess them and some type of an exit exam. Actually implementing that was really a challenge, and I actually with a grad student who we gave some release time to create a test, and it ended up having to be text-based because, so we kind of went through the book and said, what are the themes here that we think should know? But again, it's treating cultural knowledge as an artifact or as just a statistic or a piece of knowledge, and it's not about implementing that knowledge in appropriate ways. So we still need to work on that field, and I don't really think a book has something like this, and I give the credit to Anne, great job on developing these sections. So hopefully we'll get some good feedback on this first edition, and we'll have a chance for a second edition, and we'll just only improve on them.
So, Mary, what is the new mindset? Are you talking about sort of a different approach to just?
Well, I'm saying,
go ahead.
well, what you guys are saying, you don't present it as like an object of study, like, you know, we all are living culture daily. We have to reflect within ourselves. So, I mean, it's the whole way we teach that has to be re-envisioned. And I think your activities are showing that, but again, that's not the norm. This is what has to get disseminated out there for more people to join in this new kind of vision of how are we thinking.
And then Anne and I had this great conversation, I think we're on the phone for 2 hours, about, well, do we throw the baby out with the bathwater? So should students know that a lot of baseball players in the U.S. are of Cuban and Dominican origin, or what the population of Mexico City is, or that it's the, you know, one of the largest cities, if not the largest city in the world, and very polluted, and what the capital cities of Spanish-speaking countries are, and all of the equivalents for the languages that everyone involved in this webinar teach. And I would say that we don't really want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There is some value in knowing those things and knowing about culture, but it's not just that. It's about interacting in those cultures. And so we really have been negligent as a profession in helping students do that. And it's really challenging to think of how we're going to do that, especially in the classroom when we don't necessarily have native speaker interlocutors for students to interact with. So these applications where students call another country and talk to someone who's being paid, I think there's some in Central America where people are waiting on the line and have 30-minute conversations that students pay for. That's actually brilliant. And I think that's a great way to integrate some practice with cultural competence.
I want to give a plug too for the traditional sense of teaching culture in a box in textbooks. My daughter is 15, but when she was 13, she took an intensive Arabic course over the summer. The other day, I was driving past a place in town that was a hookah bar. Is that right? I don't even know if I'm saying the word correctly.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And I told Julia, I was like, what in the world is that where people get high? And she's like, no, Mom, that's not what that is. It's just a sort of vapor kind of pipe thing. And I said, how do you know about this? And she said, oh, there was a box in my Arabic textbook that explained about these and the coffee shops in the Arabic-speaking world. You know, she learned something from that. And so I certainly don't want to be dismissive of providing our students with cultural facts, because she knew something that I didn't know because she had read it in a textbook.
It was interesting, yeah.
But I think that we can also do other things with culture.
Yeah, we need to move beyond that. So keep it, but then, and also move beyond it. And maybe even I don't know if it'll ever reach the status of grammar in the classroom, right? That'll be an interesting day if our profession ever gets there. I'm not sure that's the goal either. Maybe it is, but we definitely need to be doing more. So, yeah. I can't multitask, and I can't talk and speak at the same time. Yes.
Yes, Rita, please ask.
Yeah, do you want the mic, Rita? Let me give you the mic. Enable microphone. But try to say something.
Can you hear?
Or let me make you presenter then. I think you still have to go to the top of your screen to the microphone icon and turn it on. Connect my audio or something, it says.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Maybe she can't hear us
Okay,
back.
so I would just like to ask what's your opinion on let's say you're doing
Or it may have faded out.
a course
Let's
on
see.
business Spanish.
Yes.
And the students are disappointed because you don't know everything about business. Can you hear me?
Oops.
Can you now? Or tell the students that we are not specialized in it, only on language for business, or should we try?
I'm
I
not.
don't know chance to articulate your question entirely, but I do teach business Spanish as well, so maybe I'll talk about what I think you were talking about. I think maybe you were asking, do we need business Spanish if this is the kind of approach that we're taking? And I'd say, in general, I think that languages for specific purposes, I think that sometimes we get too caught up in the specific part and not the general part. I'm more interested in, with my students in my program, teaching about the bilingual professional. So not just about the bilingual doctor, the bilingual nurse, the bilingual social worker, the bilingual veterinarian, the bilingual, I mean, we could go on and on and on. And how many of these courses can we create? And how many people can we have that could actually teach these courses effectively? And I think that students, and I've written about this, so if you want some bibliography, I can share that with you. If I were able to design a major for our students, it would be about the bilingual professional, because our students really don't know what jobs they're going to have after they graduate. Some of our students who are sure they want to study, they want to be doctors, they might not even get accepted into medical school because, or it might take them a while to get into medical school. And if they do get into medical school, will they go into dermatology, or will they go into geriatrics, or will they go into OBGYN? We don't know, they don't know. And so this idea of getting so specific and giving these students really vocabulary for specific professional tasks, I think at the undergraduate level is a bit directed. But I do teach Spanish because it was on the books already. And so what I try to do in that course is approach the teaching of business Spanish as the teaching of, yes, some business concepts, but sort of professional concepts. Like in any profession, you need leadership, you need entrepreneurial thinking, you need to be able to work in multicultural teams, you need to be able to work across generations, like Generation X and the baby boomers. There's some sort of foundational pan-professional skills that I try to focus on. Rita, I'm sorry if I interrupted you. Just the sound was coming and going. So I hope I understood you correctly, and I hope I gave you some good suggestions about that. Holly, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Actually, I do. So I think I mentioned that I'm new here at Ohio State. I arrived in August, and the woman who had been teaching business Spanish for us has left the department, and we asked a Brazilian woman to step in and teach that class. She'll be teaching it in English because she doesn't speak Spanish, but she has a business background from Brazil. And she came to me asking for teaching guidelines. And she's like, look, the syllabus that I inherited is all about how to do accounting in Spanish. And she's like, but I really think that they can get that from their business studies. And is that really what you want me to be teaching? And I was like, well, look, it's your course. It's not under my purview, but I'd love to talk to you about this. And she said that I should be teaching intercultural competence in the business world. And I said, I agree. I think that's great. So I'm going to refocus the class. But she agreed that the objective of that class was not to teach business skills, that they would get that from their degrees, but to talk about culture within a business context and what that means in the context of a particular country or culture. So I don't know if that adds anything or not, but I just wanted to add that in.
Yeah. You know, here in the United States at least, most people who teach business Spanish use a textbook called Éxito Comercial, and they have business content and they have cultural content in each chapter. And
That's great.
it's really thick. It's sort of intimidating because of how much information and content is in it, but they have really good content.
Great. Yeah. So did Mary leave?
I see.
Yeah, I actually, I'm not sure. Ireland. No, I'm not. I actually am going to have to leave soon to teach. So I don't know. It looks like Mary got disconnected. Maybe. Do you see that, Anne?
Yeah, I see that. But that's okay, Holly. You can go ahead and go, and I can stay and chat with anyone who still wants to chat. And
Okay.
hopefully Mary will be back on.
Does that mean we're not recording anymore? I think we still are, though. I see the red dot up there recording.
Carolina, thank
Oh,
you.
Mary's back. There's Mary.
Carolina, I hope to meet you in person someday soon. Rita, when you were in Ireland, you were teaching business Portuguese then, so Irish students who wanted to go to Portugal or to Brazil to work in business. Rita, if you're still there, I just want you to know that if you want to talk any further about business Portuguese, business Spanish, or just business in LSP in general, I'd be happy to have an email conversation or a telephone or Skype conversation with you too. There's Mary.
Yeah, she came back. All right, I'm just going to sign off, everyone. Thanks so much. It was my first webinar. I'm no longer a novata.
You did great.
Thanks, everyone.